church fam, Pastor Tom here at the Vicarage once again, bringing you the second part of the message that we had talked about yesterday. So I hope you're blessed. I hope you're staying safe and all things are going as well as can be. But let's dive right into this part right here today. Remember last devotional we talked about teach me, O Lord, and the way that God teaches us. And sometimes He uses methods that we don't always enjoy. Sometimes it's on subjects that we wouldn't choose for ourselves, but nevertheless, there are things we need to learn. And we were talking about that, how this season of our lives, we really need to gain understanding of what God is trying to teach us and help us to grow. Today, I want to minister out of the second part of that verse in Psalms 119, where the psalmist writes and says, give me. Give me. First we learned teach me, now we're learning give me. Now at first glance this sounds like such a selfish statement, but when you read the passage you see that it's not. In Psalms 119 verse 34 he says, give me understanding and I shall keep your law. Indeed, I shall observe it with my whole heart. So here we see that the psalmist's motive is a good one. He wants to obey God with all of his heart. So the reason he's asking God to give him something is not for his selfish pleasure, but so that he can fully obey God. He recognizes that he does not have understanding yet, but he needs it desperately. I want you to catch that. He recognizes he does not have understanding yet, but he needs it desperately. And the reason I say that is because we have to recognize that we need understanding, and we have to admit when we don't have it. And that's okay, because we can come to God, like the psalmist said, and say, Lord, give me understanding. Understanding is a word that we use a lot in the Christian world. It means to be discerning, to be perceiving, to have perception. And there's another verse that kind of helps us cross-reference this, and that's in 1 Samuel chapter 3. And we'll read that in just a second. The Lord had been calling out to young Samuel as a boy, and he had been there with Eli, his mentor, and he thought it was Eli who was speaking to him, and Eli was saying, it wasn't me. And then finally in verse 8, 1 Samuel 3:8, this is what the Bible says. And the Lord called again to Samuel the third time. So he arose and went to Eli and said, here I am, for you did call me. And then this is the key phrase. Then Eli perceived that the Lord had called the boy. Another translation says, Eli realized that the Lord was calling the boy. See, that word realize, perception, is the same word that the psalmist is crying out for. He's saying, I want to have this understanding so I can realize when you're doing something. I need understanding so I can perceive what's going on, so I can act properly in accordance with your word and therefore ultimately be blessed. For Eli, it was almost like a light went on in his head. Isn't that what we want sometimes? Like, God, help me just to see clearly, to understand what you're saying or what you're doing or what I should do. Those are all things where we can say to God, give me that understanding. It's another reason, I believe, why Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 7 says in the King James Version, with all thy getting, get understanding, as if it's of utmost importance. And the longer I've been a Christian, the more I realize we need understanding if we're going to live for Him, especially in trying circumstances. See, our prayer should be, give me a discerning ear. Help me to perceive and to understand what you are saying. I want to hear the voice of God above the din of the world. Because, see, the world is giving out lots of messages, especially during this time. We are hearing from government officials here in the UK on a daily basis. We are experiencing voices coming from the scientific community and the medical community. And while all of those play their part, we need governments, We need medical staff and personnel. We obviously need the scientific community to help us understand things. I want to tell you, one voice we need above all of those is the voice of God. And that's where we need this understanding to be able to understand the voice of God. See, the reason is because He cares for us more than anyone else could care for us. The government, medical officials, scientific community only care so much, but God cares through and through, from top to bottom of our lives. See, understand with me as we get ready to close here. Our circumstances dictate that we stop being selfish and start looking out for other people. It dictates that. We can't live in a selfish manner in which we're living in the circumstances in which we're in today. But that can only happen in our lives if we look to God for understanding first. The only way we can truly care for others and get beyond our own selfishness is when we say, God, I need your voice. I need your wisdom. I need your understanding. So let's be like the psalmist and say, give me the understanding, the wisdom that I need in order to live through this time that we're in. So that's it for today. Look out for the final message coming up probably tomorrow. The final message in this video series. And if you'd like to contact us, feel free to do that. You can contact me at Pastor Tom at newharvestuk.com. That's Pastor Tom, no spaces, at newharvestuk.com. God bless you, and keep on living for the Lord.